They said no mortal could defy the gods. They said the plasma bolt moved faster than thought, hotter than any star. But when the human raised their hand and caught it midair, the battlefield went silent. Every witness felt their faith collapse in that single, blinding moment. The gods had lied, and humanity had just proved it. When reality cracked, the reactor core was melting down, and Zelnak knew exactly how long they all had to live. 47 seconds. Her Vrin brain processed the mathematics with cold precision, calculating the thermal cascade that would vaporize everything within 300 meters of Orbital Research Station Kappa 9. The emergency alarm screamed through recycled air, while technicians fled toward escape pods. Zelnak remained frozen at her monitoring station, watching the temperature readings climb past every safety threshold. The containment field was collapsing. The coolant systems had failed. The backup generators were offline. Every redundancy had failed simultaneously, which should have been statistically impossible, but statistics meant nothing when you were about to die. 42 seconds now. Movement caught her attention through the observation window. Someone was running toward the reactor chamber, not away from it. Zelnak's 3 eyes focused and her blood went cold. It was the human, the contractor they had hired last cycle to upgrade the station's power distribution systems. Maya Torres. That was her name. Stop her! Zelnak screamed into the comm system, but her voice was lost in the chaos. She watched, helpless, as the human sealed herself inside the reactor room. Through the radiation-shielded glass, Zelnak could see Maya moving with impossible speed, her hands flying across manual override panels that should have been too hot to touch. 38 seconds. The radiation levels inside that chamber were already lethal. The Vrin had precise measurements for such things. Exposure to that environment would break down cellular structure within moments. Even with protective gear, no known species could survive more than 15 seconds in those conditions. Maya wore only her standard worksuit. Zelnak activated the internal cameras, unable to look away despite knowing she was watching someone die. The human moved with strange fluidity, her body somehow navigating the superheated environment as if the laws of thermodynamics were mere suggestions. She ripped open a panel with her bare hands, the metal glowing orange from residual heat. That should have melted her skin. 29 seconds. Maya plunged both arms into the exposed circuitry, and Zelnak saw the electricity arc across the human's body. The power levels were enough to stop a Vrin heart instantly, to cook a Dolmari alive, to reduce a Kelthran to ash. The human gritted her teeth, muscles straining, and manually redirected the power flow with her own hands as living conduits. 15 seconds. The reactor temperature began dropping, slowly at first, then faster. The containment field stabilized. The cascade reversed. Zelnak stared at her instruments in disbelief as every reading shifted from critical failure to nominal function. The reactor was purring like nothing had happened. The human collapsed. Zelnak ran. She did not remember making the decision to move. Her legs simply carried her toward the reactor chamber while her mind screamed that this violated every protocol. The radiation should still be dangerous. The heat should still be unbearable. But she burst through the door anyway and found Maya Torres lying on the metal floor, conscious but trembling. "Don't move me yet," Maya said, her voice steady despite everything. "Need a minute for the nervous system to reset." Zelnak knelt beside her, medical scanner already out. The readings made no sense. Elevated heart rate, yes. Elevated core temperature, yes. But nothing fatal. Nothing permanent. The human cellular structure showed signs of damage. But even as Zelnak watched, the tissue was already beginning to repair itself at a rate that should have taken days, not minutes. "How are you alive?" Zelnak whispered. Maya managed a weak smile. "Good genes, I guess." "No." Zelnak's voice was sharper than she intended. "I calculated your survival probability at 0.003%. The radiation alone should have destroyed your DNA. The electrical current should have stopped your heart. The heat should have caused catastrophic organ failure." "Yeah, it wasn't fun," Maya admitted, sitting up slowly. "But humans are tougher than we look. Earth wasn't exactly a gentle nursery, you know. Our bodies learned to cope with a lot." Zelnak helped her stand, mind racing. She had studied xenobiology for 30 cycles. She knew the limits of organic life. Every species in the galactic community had been taught these limits by the architects, the ancient beings who had uplifted each civilization and given them the gift of space travel. The architects had explained the fundamental rules. Biology could only endure so much radiation, so much heat, so much physical stress before breaking. Humans were breaking those rules. "I need to run more scans," Zelnak said. "Medical evaluation. Full genetic workup. What you just did should not be possible." "I just did what needed doing," Maya replied, brushing soot from her work suit. "The reactor was fixable if someone could reach the manual overrides fast enough. So I reached them. But the environment was really unpleasant, yeah. I'm gonna feel this for a few days." Maya rotated her shoulders, wincing. "But unpleasant isn't the same as impossible. There's a difference." That night, Zelnak could not sleep. She sat in her laboratory running calculations, reviewing the sensor data from the reactor incident, trying to make the numbers make sense. They did not. They could not. Unless everything she had been taught about biological limitations was wrong, she accessed the classified archives. Her security clearance as senior xenobiologist gave her access to restricted files, research that was deemed too sensitive for general distribution.
She did not know what she was looking for until she found it. File designation, Species Assessment, Humanity.
Classification, Theological Hazard. Recommendation, suppress information regarding baseline capabilities. Zelnak's hands trembled as she read. The document was over a century old, filed shortly after humanity's first contact with the galactic community. It detailed incident after incident of humans performing feats that violated established biological limits, surviving vacuum exposure, enduring toxic environments, healing from injuries that should have been fatal, demonstrating reaction speeds that exceeded theoretical neural processing capacity. Every incident had been classified, buried, removed from public record. Why? She scrolled deeper and found her answer in a communication log between the Architects' Council and the newly formed Reconciliation Committee. The words made her feel ill. Humanity represents an uncontrolled variable. Unlike all client species, they develop spacefaring technology without intervention. Their capabilities suggest that imposed biological limitations may not be universal requirements. Recommend information suppression to prevent theological destabilization among existing populations. Imposed biological limitations. Zelnak read those words 3 times. The architects had not given other species gifts. They had given them limits. They had optimized civilizations, yes, but optimization meant control. It meant predictability. It meant ensuring that no species could advance beyond carefully designed parameters. Humans had never received that optimization. They had clawed their way to the stars alone, and in doing so, they had proven that the limits were artificial. The door to her laboratory opened. Zelnak spun, closing the files instantly, but relaxed when she saw it was only Kren, the Dolmari security officer who worked the night shift. "Saw your lights on," Kren said, his forearms carrying a container of stimulant beverage. "Thought you might need this. Heard about what happened with the reactor. The humans saved us all," Zelnak said quietly. "I know. I reviewed the security footage." Kren's expression was troubled. "I've seen humans do impossible things before. On my homeworld during the mining collapse, a human supervisor held up a support beam that weighed 3,000 kilos while we evacuated. Held it for 4 minutes. That shouldn't be possible." Zelnak looked at him carefully. "Did you report it?" "I was going to. Then the Reconciliation Committee contacted me. Said it was better not to cause panic. Said humans were just lucky that the beam must have been lighter than we measured." Kren set down the beverage container. "But I measured it myself, and I've been wondering ever since what else they've lied about." Zelnak made a decision. She reopened the files and turned her screen toward Kren. "I think we need to find out the truth." They buried Kren, read through the files in silence, his 4 eyes moving independently across the screen as Dolmari did when processing disturbing information. Zelnak watched him carefully, wondering if she had made a mistake by sharing this. Kren was security. His loyalty was supposed to be to the station, to the protocols, to the established order, but his hands were shaking. "They knew," Kren said finally. "The architects knew that humans developed without their intervention, and instead of celebrating it or studying it, they buried it. Not just buried it. They debated eliminating humanity entirely." Zelnak pulled up another file, this one marked with the highest security designation, 3 proposals reached the Architects' Council. One suggested acknowledging that their theories about biological development were wrong. One suggested permanent quarantine of human space. The third suggested sterilizing Earth before humanity could spread. Kren's skin changed color, shifting through the blue spectrum that indicated horror in Dolmari physiology. Genocide. They considered genocide because humans proved them wrong. The quarantine option won by a narrow vote. That was 127 cycles ago. Zelnak scrolled through more documents. Since then, the Reconciliation Committee has been systematically suppressing any evidence of human capabilities that might cause other species to question the limits they were taught. What limits? Kren asked. What exactly did the architects do to us? Zelnak opened a comparative biology file. According to this research, every uplifted species received genetic modifications during their development phase. The architects called it optimization. They enhanced certain traits while suppressing others. My people, the Vrin, received enhanced cognitive processing for mathematics and science. Your people received improved multitasking capability and spatial reasoning. That sounds beneficial. It was. But look at what else they did. Zelnak highlighted another section. They installed biological governors, maximum stress tolerance levels, pain threshold limiters, healing rate suppressors. They told us these were natural biological constants, but they were actually artificial controls coded into our genetics. Kren was quiet for a long moment. Why would they do that? Control. The voice came from the doorway. Both of them spun to find Maya Torres leaning against the frame, arms crossed. She looked tired but alert, and Zelnak wondered how long the human had been listening. They wanted manageable populations, not independent civilizations. How did you find us? Zelnak demanded. Followed you after the medical scan. Figured you'd have questions. Maya walked into the laboratory without invitation, her movements still showing some stiffness from the reactor incident. You're not the first to notice. Humans have been having this conversation with curious aliens for decades now. Then why hasn't anything changed? Kren asked. Because the Reconciliation Committee is very good at damage control. Anyone who speaks up gets discredited, transferred, or worse. The committee is made up of representatives from the earliest uplifted species, the ones who've built their entire civilizations on the foundation the architects provided. They have everything to lose if people start questioning the system. Zelnak felt anger rising in her chest, an emotion Vrin were taught to suppress as inefficient. So they just keep lying? They let entire species believe they have limitations that aren't real? It's worse than that. Maya pulled up a chair, sitting backward on it in that casual way humans often did. They're not just maintaining a lie. They're actively preventing other species from reaching their potential. Every time someone gets close to breaking through their artificial limits, the committee steps in, classifies the research, relocates the scientist, makes the problem disappear. But you, Zelnak said, humans don't have these governors. What are you capable of? Maya considered the question. Honestly, we're still figuring it out. Earth is what the architects classified as a Category 4 death world. Highest difficulty rating. Most planets where intelligent life develops are Category 1 or 2. Comfortable environments with manageable threats. Earth had megafauna predators, aggressive diseases, extreme weather, high gravity, volatile geology, and an oxygen concentration that's actually mildly toxic to most species. That should have prevented intelligent life from developing, Kren said. It almost did. Humans nearly went extinct several times, but the ones who survived, we adapted. Our bodies learned to heal faster, endure more, react quicker, not because we were designed that way, but because anything less meant death. Maya flexed her hands, looking at them thoughtfully. The architects surveyed Earth 40,000 years ago. They classified it as an experimental control group, a planet they'd leave alone to see what happened without intervention. They expected us to die out, but you didn't. Zelnak pulled up the assessment files. According to these projections, humanity should have plateaued at pre-industrial development and eventually succumbed to environmental pressures within 20 to 30,000 years. Instead, we invented agriculture, mathematics, flight, nuclear physics, genetic engineering, and faster-than-light travel, all without anyone's help. Maya's expression hardened. And when we showed up and surveyed space with our own ships, our own technology, our own achievements, the architects panicked, because we were living proof that their entire philosophy was wrong. Kren stood abruptly, pacing with the nervous energy that Dolmari displayed under stress. If this is true, if the limitations are artificial, then what else is a lie?
Our mathematics?
Our physics? How much of what we've built is actually ours versus what they programmed into us? That's the question that scares them most, Maya said. Because once you start pulling that thread, everything unravels. What if Vryn could process information even faster without the governors? What if Delmari could coordinate not just 4 tasks simultaneously, but 40? What if every species in the galaxy has been operating at a fraction of their actual potential for thousands of years? Zelnak felt something crack inside her chest. Not physically, but spiritually. The Vryn believed their mathematical abilities were a divine gift from the architects, that their capacity for probability analysis was proof of the architects' wisdom and generosity. Every calculation Zelnak had ever performed, every theorem she had proven, she had attributed to that gift. But what if the architects had simply taken credit for abilities her ancestors already possessed? What if they had then limited those abilities to keep the Vryn dependent and manageable? I need to see proof, Zelnak said. Real proof, not just files that could be fabricated. I need to understand what you can do that we cannot. Maya nodded slowly. All right, but you need to understand something first. What I'm about to show you will change how you see everything. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. The Reconciliation Committee will consider you a threat. Your life will get complicated. It's already complicated, Kren said. Show us. Maya stood and walked to the laboratory's equipment section. She picked up a plasma cutter, the kind used for precision metalwork. The tool generated a focused beam capable of slicing through reinforced alloys. She adjusted the settings to maximum output. This is going to seem dramatic, but it makes the point clearly. Maya activated the cutter and held her other hand directly in the beam's path. Stop! Zelnak lunged forward, but Maya had already done it. The plasma beam that should have severed her hand instead seemed to slide around her palm, the energy dispersing harmlessly. Maya held her hand steady for 3 seconds, then deactivated the tool. Her skin was unmarked. How? Kren whispered. Pattern recognition and heat redistribution. The plasma has a structure, a flow pattern. If you can read it fast enough and adjust your body's electromagnetic field, you can deflect most of the energy. It's like catching water. Maya flexed her fingers. It takes training, concentration, and yeah, it's uncomfortable. But it's possible. Electromagnetic field. Zelnak's scientific mind was racing. Biological entities don't generate fields strong enough to affect plasma. Unmodified biological entities do, or at least humans do. We think it's an evolutionary adaptation from Earth's strong magnetic field and frequent electrical storms. Our nervous systems generate more electrical activity than most species. The architects probably would have suppressed that if they'd gotten to us. Zelnak approached Maya, scanner in hand. May I? Go ahead, the readings confirmed it. The human's nervous system was generating electromagnetic pulses an order of magnitude stronger than Vryn baseline. Not enough to be weaponized, but enough to interact with energy fields on a small scale. This should be in every xenobiology textbook, Zelnak said. This changes our understanding of what's possible, and that's exactly why it's not in the textbooks. Maya powered down the plasma cutter. The architects built a system where they're the source of all knowledge, all advancement, all possibility. Humans are proof that system is a lie, so they made us disappear, at least on paper. Kren had been quiet, processing. Finally, he spoke. What do we do with this information? That's your choice, Maya said. You can forget this conversation happened, go back to your lives, stay safe within the limits you were taught, or you can start asking questions, doing research, testing boundaries. Humans can help. We've been collecting data on the genetic governors, figuring out how they work. Some species have already started modifying themselves, removing the restrictions. That's illegal, Zelnak said automatically. Then she stopped. Or rather, the Reconciliation Committee has made it illegal. Exactly. They criminalized self-improvement because they know what happens when species start reaching their actual potential. They lose control. Zelnak looked at Kren. The Dolmari security officer looked back. Some unspoken understanding passed between them. We need more people to know, Zelnak said. Carefully, slowly. People we trust who can verify the information independently. It's dangerous, Maya warned. Everything worthwhile is. Zelnak turned back to her terminal, mind already racing with possibilities. I know researchers on 6 different worlds, scientists who ask uncomfortable questions. If we provide them with evidence, with methodologies to test it themselves, a network, Kren said. Not a rebellion. Just people discovering truth independently. That's how humans do it, Maya agreed. We didn't overthrow the architect's experiment by fighting. We did it by existing, by continuing to advance despite being told we couldn't. The lie falls apart when enough people see through it. Zelnak began copying files, her hands moving with purpose. The architects are gone. They left centuries ago. The only thing maintaining their system is the Reconciliation Committee, and the belief that the limits are real. Remove the belief, and the limits disappear, Kren finished. Maya smiled. Now you're thinking like a human. Outside the laboratory, the station continued its routine operations. Ships docked and departed. Research continued in a dozen different facilities. Everything appeared normal. But in that small room, 3 beings from 3 different species had just decided to tear down the foundations of galactic civilization. Not through violence or revolution, but through something more dangerous. Truth. Zelnak looked at the data streaming across her screen, at proof that everything she had been taught about biological limitations was a lie. The architects had built their authority on limiting what species believed possible. But belief could change. Truth could spread. And once enough people knew what they were actually capable of, no committee could stop them. The universe was about to discover what happened when you told free minds they had no limits, then prove the limits were never real to begin with.